I worked at Blackpool Pleasure Beach for a few years, mostly on the ghost train ride. It's an old attraction, creaky, dark, full of cheap jump scares. But people always said it was haunted, especially by a ghost they called Cloggy. Supposedly, he was a ride operator who died decades ago, and his spirit never left. I used to laugh at the stories until my last night shift. It was a slow night, and the park was closing. I was the only one left to do the final check of the ghost train. Normally I'd speed through it, but that night felt different. The air was heavy and the ride felt darker than usual. As I walked through, I kept hearing noises. Footsteps echoing behind me, faint whispers in the distance. I told myself it was just the animatronics, but my gut told me otherwise. When I reached the control booth, I froze. There, standing by the panel, was a man. He was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a dark uniform with suspenders, and on his feet were clogs. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew it wasn't a co-worker. I called out, "Hey, the park's closed!" But he didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me. I blinked, and he was gone, just like that. Before I could process what had happened, the ride powered on. The ghost train started moving on its own. I ran to the control panel, but everything was switched off. The lights flickered, and I could hear the ride creaking as if it was full of passengers. Then I heard a voice. It was deep and gruff, whispering my name. "Get out!" I didn't need to be told twice. I sprinted out of the ride, leaving the lights and sounds behind me. The next day, I handed in my notice. Whatever, or whoever, was in that ride, I wasn't going to stick around to find out. To this day, I don't know if it was Cloggy or something else, but one thing's for sure, I'll never set foot in the ghost train again.
I'll never forget that night at Icon Park. My friends and I decided to try the freefall tower. It looked terrifying, but fun. The line wasn't too long, and we were joking around, hyping each other up. That's when I noticed this kid in front of us. He was big, probably around 14 or 15. He seemed excited, but there was this awkward moment when the operator struggled to get his harness down. I got on the ride a few rows behind him. As we climbed higher and higher, I felt that usual mix of nerves and adrenaline. But right before the drop, something weird happened. I heard this faint clicking sound, like something coming loose. The ride plummeted, and that's when it happened. I'll never forget the sight. Someone falling. At first I thought it was part of the ride, but then I heard the screams from the people next to me. When we reached the bottom, everyone rushed off. There was this awful silence as people stared at the boy's body. He was lying there, lifeless. I could see his harness was still locked. To this day, I can't shake that moment, the sickening realization that safety isn't always guaranteed. I'm the type of person who lives for creepy experiences, so when my friends brought up Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, I was all in. It's an abandoned park in West Virginia with a dark history, rumors of accidents, deaths, and even a Native American burial ground underneath. It sounded like the perfect thrill. We got there just before sunset. The place was hauntingly beautiful. Nature had completely reclaimed it. The Ferris wheel was rusted over, and the pond looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. But what drew me in were the swings. They stood there, still and silent except for the occasional creak from the chains swaying in the wind. They said a little girl had died on those swings. A truck accidentally backed into her. I couldn't stop staring, imagining her playing there. I snapped a few pictures, but that's when I noticed the swings starting to move. At first, I thought it was the wind, but none of the surrounding trees or bushes moved. It was just the swings. I joked with my friends, "Looks like she's still having fun." But deep down, I felt uneasy. Then I heard it, a soft, high-pitched giggle, like a child laughing. I spun around, expecting one of my friends to jump out and scare me, but they were all by the Ferris wheel, far away. That's when I felt it, something cold brushing against my arm. It wasn't like wind, it was deliberate, like someone had touched me. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice shook as I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" And then I saw her, a little girl just standing there by the swings. She wore a white dress, but her face, it was shadowed, like I couldn't quite focus on her. I blinked, and she was gone. I ran back to my friends, swearing I'd felt something, seen something. They laughed, saying I was just psyching myself out. But when I checked the pictures later, my stomach dropped. In one of them, the swing closest to me had a blurry figure sitting on it. It looked like a girl in white, her face turned toward me. I don't know what I saw that night, but I haven't been back to Lake Shawnee since.